WDIS, or What Do I See, is an easy way to help your students pick out details when looking at primary and secondary sources. So, this first one that we're looking at here is a picture of a book cover. And I just wanted to show you that you could use this strategy on just about anything. So, what I would ask my students for this is just the question, What do I see? I want students to tell me everything they see in this picture. So we can do this a few ways. We can generate a list. We can give each student a copy of this picture and have them circle their ideas. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways here using my Jamboard. So I'm going to use the marker. And so one thing that I see is the title here. Okay, I also see two children, two boys. I also notice different buildings. So it looks like a city here. And then we have buildings here, but they look a little bit different. We have an award. We have the author's name. So those are all different things that a student might pick out. And then if you wanted to generate a list, you would just type in those items off on the side. Etc., etc. Okay, so that's one way you can do it. The nice thing after you WDIS, where you pick out what you see in the images, is that you can then go and talk about it and pull clues from those details. So you could talk about how this boy at the top looks different than the boy on the bottom. You could talk about how the buildings here look different than the buildings here, and talk about the title and use these clues and make a prediction. Here's an example from a second grade social studies unit, the Inquiry and Social Studies unit. And again, we would encourage students to mark in what they see. So the first thing they would probably notice is there is a man here. Okay, the man seems to be looking at something. He's writing down what he sees. He has different types of clothing than what we might see right now. There is a field that he's standing in. Okay, so we could write all those things down and then use those details to help decide what comes next. So, who is this man? What is he looking at? What is he studying? When was this picture taken? We could use the clues from his clothes to know that it probably didn't happen this decade, but maybe back in the mid 1900s. Here's another type of source that can be used. You can use charts and graphs. This comes from the fourth grade social studies unit about the Northeast and the Industrial Revolution. So with this one, I would still encourage students to mark in what they notice. So right here, New York City population from 1790 to 1910. You might want to mark in how high this top one goes. You might note that right about here, we start seeing a pretty decent growth, pretty decent jump. And then you could always write out your answers and responses and generate a list. Also, as students become more familiar with WDIS and as they're a little bit older, simply having a discussion after they've had a chance to look at these can be quite helpful. Here's the last elementary example, and this one comes from the fifth grade civil rights unit. And what it is two articles of the Iowa Constitution from 1857. Now, what I've shown you so far have been visual aspects where it's what you see for the most part. This one is also what do you see, but it's what do you read? What do you notice? So in this one, I'm actually going to switch my marker to a highlighter. So I notice that we have Article 1 and Article 2. In Section 1, I see that it says all men. And then over in Section 1 of Article 2, every white male citizen. Now I notice that white is marked in brackets. So then down here, I have my information for why it's in brackets. I notice in this section we have more requirements. We have 21 years old. We have a resident of the state for 6 months, of the county. So all of these different things. So this is an example of how you can talk about and do WDIS with written sources. And then also to compare back and forth if you wanted to, that is another good option.